Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Namasri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Surai Satchit Sukasvarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. We are studying Swamiji's Karma-Yoga. This is the 8th chapter, the last chapter, the ideal of Karma-Yoga, class 23. So, in this class, we hope to conclude the Karma-Yoga series of classes. So, as I mentioned in the last class, this chapter, 8th chapter, itself is a sort of synopsis of the whole Karma-Yoga. Swamiji takes up some of the important points, not all, some of the important points, and then explains. Nevertheless, Swamiji has given much fresh insight into the topic. Okay? So, in the last class, we were discussing that equality, the point of equality. The next idea we take up is the idea of equality. That Swamiji says this perfect equality is not possible in the society, in the world, nay, in the Srishti itself. If we try to achieve that, we will end in annihilation. So Swamiji says, what makes this world, this variation? If it is in the society, there are people of various types, various acumen. So this makes up the diversity in the society. Similarly in the Srishti as well. Swamiji says, by struggling, competition, conflict, this universe has come into being and sustains. So homogeneity or uniformity or equilibrium means perfect rest, and there won't be any movement, there won't be any variation. So that means there won't be any Jagat itself. Absolute equality, which means a perfect balance of all the struggling forces in all the planes, can never be in this world. Before you attain to that state, the world will have become quite unfit for any kind of life, and no one will be there. We find therefore that all these ideas of millennium and of absolute equality are not only impossible, but also that if we try to carry them out, they will lead us surely enough to the day of destruction. So, Swami is actually referring to this idea we saw, the idea of millennium, where everything will be good, there won't be any discrimination, all that God is going, this is a Christian idea, the idea of millennium, that God is going to rule, there won't be any, the problems of, this is a old idea, that time there used to be slavery and other social issues were there, and that everyone will be equal in the society. So they alone know what this equal means. So this idea, in a different way, it comes in the Ramayana, where so it will take more time, so I will not go into. So Swamiji says this, it is a good, it could be a good motive power for the people of lower strata to make them, to give them some impetus, some hope for them to work or to inspire them to higher ideals. But if we scrutinize, it is not a true one, and it's not going to be a reality. It's simply a hope, that's all. But why give a false hope? Swamiji contends. And says, also Swamiji referred to the French Revolution. They had this slogan, liberty, equality, fraternity. So on the basis of this also, they had this revolution. Swamiji says, even it may be a good motive power for some social action and movement, but it is not a true one. So it's not going to be reality. So why do you base your hopes on that? Rather understand the truth of things, and based on that you work. So continuing, Swamiji says, what makes the difference between man and man? It is largely the difference in the brain. Nowadays, no one but a lunatic will say that we are all born with the same brain power. We come into the world with unequal endowments. We come as greater men or as lesser men, and there is no getting away from that prenatally determined condition. So this is the truth, is it not? So society has come up not in one civilization or one culture, not in one century. Throughout the millennia, in every culture, society has come up, has been built based on this. There are there are works, there are jobs which only require a little bit of acumen, brain power, right? And there are those which require much sacrifice, much higher ideals, all this, right? So the society has, it's a graded organization. So this term Swamiji used already and explained. It's a graded organization. So there are jobs, there are planes where there are lower ideas of duty, lower ideas of morality, ethics are there. And then as we move up higher and higher the strata in the society, so the demands on the person are more. The ethical, moral demands, is it not? One is the responsibility will be more, right? So it goes on like that, and society is built on that. Now, so all this is to suit people of various accomplishments, of various brain power and moral and ethical natures, right? So this is the truth, and there is no point of getting away from this. When this is the thing, so base your reforms or whatever and the rules, the movements based on this rather than on false promises, right? So continuing, so it is the difference between these two forces, the forces, one tending towards uniformity, other tending towards diversity, or one tending towards freedom, other tending towards the worldly life, or continuing in the bondage. So it is the difference between these two forces that determines the nature of the motives of men. There will always be these motives to work, some tending towards bondage and other towards freedom. So this is about the point of equality. So Swamiji moves on to the next point in this, that is the idea of duty. This world's wheel within wheel is a terrible mechanism. If we put our hands in it, as soon as we are caught, we are gone. We all think that when we have done a certain duty, we shall be at rest. But before we have done a part of that duty, another is already in waiting. We are all being dragged along by this mighty complex world machine. So here there is one point. So we see in the society, this duty is never ending. That is the point here Swamiji is making. So generally seen, one thing we see generally in the society is those who are sincere, for them work never ends. Some of them even you would have seen complaining that though if you are honest at work, whether it is at let's say the job at government office or a business enterprise, or let's say even a individual independent somebody, a farmer it may be, somebody who is having his own small business, whatever it is, even at work, even at home, somebody is honest, sincere, their work increases. We hear these things, is it not? So generally see the duty, the general idea of duty. So this is never ending, one after another will be in there. So it is so much so that based on this, there is one shloka in the Ashtavakra Gita where the sage Ashtavakra telling the disciple where and when, for whom this duty has ceased, my son. So he is raising a question like this to break this bondage of duty, the idea of bondage of duty, generally speaking, from a higher perspective, not from the usual perspective. You should remember. So whole Karma Yoga, there are teachings. So we saw there is whole chapter dedicated to this. What is duty, right? There Swamiji talks about the lower ideas of duty, then the higher ideas of duty are taken up, then doing good, then that also, doing good with some, the motive to do good somewhere, there is some problem or something, some need, somebody, so that idea of do good, that also is given up. Then said, why? So the world is not going to be perfect, so don't expect it to be perfect, that by your work, by your doing good, that world will become perfect. No, it will continue to be a mixture. So if you expect it to become good by your good works, then you are going to be frustrated. Swamiji says this and knocks that idea also. He says, world will be like that, but still you should work. And then Swamiji quotes the Gita's idea. And that Swamiji says, if I do not work, there will be chaos in the world. The Lord says, right? So Swamiji uses that, and then, so that is the highest. That why should we have any motive to work at all? So we'll come to that. Swamiji takes Buddha's example, explain that. That's the idea, highest idea of unselfish work. So this gradations of duty, this idea of duty, then the ideas of good, doing good, then the highest idea, that is do good. It is do good to do good, but why should there be any motive at all? So like this. So this idea should be kept in mind that there are gradations of ideas. One suited for the lower, middle strata, then the higher, and then the highest, right? So here as well, this general idea, the general idea, line of duty is going to be never ending, right? So that's what Swamiji says. There are only now there are only two ways out of it. One is to give up all concerns with the machine, to let it go and stand aside, to give up our desires. That is very easy to say, but is almost impossible to do. I do not know whether in 20 millions of men one can do that. So this is the Vedantic way, that the Jnana Yoga path. That is, give up the ideas, give up the desires, and then that is Tyaga, and then give up, and then so take up the Jnana path, and then practice the Nitya Viveka, all those things. This is one way. So which is, Swami, of course, as we can see, only people of high purity and high intellectual will and accomplishment and willpower can really practice that and make good progress. So Swami says it's very, very difficult. The other way is to plunge into the world and learn the secret of work, and that is the way of Karma-Yoga. Do not fly away from the wheels of the world machine, but stand inside it and learn the secret of work. Through proper work done inside, it is also possible to come out. Through this, machinery itself is the way out. So this is the central point, the theme of Karma Yoga. That is, through the work itself, with a different attitude, different approach, you can break the bondage of the life and attain freedom. So this is the line. So though this approach is Karma Yoga, but actually it is a common approach in the Vedantic paths, including Jnana Yoga also, where Karma Yoga is prescribed in the beginning stages until one attains sufficient purity of mind. Then one can take to Upasanas, etc., or to Jnana, the straight away Jnana thing, right? Though it is one can continue in and then attain the freedom, that is the teaching of the Karma Yoga. But the Karma Yoga is also common to other, even Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti people, the Bhaktas also, they practice as a service of the Lord, right? And in the Jnana Yoga, they practice it for Chitta Shuddhi, purity of mind. We have seen what work is. It is a part of nature's foundation and goes on always. Those that believe in God understand this better, because they know that God is not such an incapable being as will need our help. So here there is an important point. Work is part of nature's foundation and goes on always. So this is an important point Swamiji makes here. Work is a nature's foundation. Whole society, is it not? If there is no work, if people do not work, will the mankind stand? So in the Gita, so much so that in the Gita, Bhagavan says, by very nature man works. Not a single man can stay without work, even for a minute. So Swamiji Bhagavan makes this statement in the Gita. So with the very foundation, the work is the very foundation of nature. Prakriti, nature meaning Prakriti, of course it's a divine dispensation, and it goes on always. The very life itself stands on it. Work in the one way or the other, mental or physical or whichever way, so work is unavoidable. Although this universe will go on always, our goal is freedom. Our goal is unselfishness. And according to Karma Yoga, that goal is to be reached through work. All ideas of making the world perfectly happy may be good as motive powers for fanatics, but we must know that fanaticism brings forth as much evil as good. So, though the universe will go on always, so that we have nothing to do. So the person's goal is to attain freedom, to go towards higher and higher moral ideas, moral and ethical ideas, and more and more knowledge of the truth of life, of oneself, and attain freedom. That is the person's, an individual's goal or aim or the path to seek, right? And so according to Karma Yoga, that path, that freedom is sought through karma itself, but with a different attitude. And and Swamiji says all the ideas of making the world perfectly happy is a false, is based on false thing, and is not going to be there. But nevertheless, person has to work and then do good. That is the point. So Karma Yogi asks why you require any motive to work other than the inborn love of freedom. Be beyond the common worldly motives. To work you have right, but not to the fruits thereof. Man can train himself to know and to practice that, says the Karma Yogi. When the idea of doing good becomes a part of his very being, then he will not seek for any motive outside. So, as we said, see, this is the highest, higher teaching, that why should somebody require any motive to do good, to do good to people around or the society at large? So, and Swamiji quotes here the Gita's teaching, Karmanyam adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. You to work you have the right, but not to the fruits thereof. So, man can train himself to know and to understand these teachings and practice that. And when the idea of doing good becomes established, one's very nature is established in this principle of doing good and living by principles, morality. When somebody is established in in morality, in doing good, all these gunas, sadgunas, then there won't be any need for seeking for motives to do good and all these things. That's the thing. So let us do good, because it is good to do good. He who does good work, even in order to get to heaven, binds himself down, says the Karma Yogi. Any work that is done with the least selfish motive, instead of making us free, forges one more chain for our feet. So here these Karma Kanda, the Yaga, Yajna, etc. Earlier days it used to be there. You do this Yaga, you do this Dana, you do these social charity works, and that will take you to heaven, and you will have so and so happiness there, so and so sukha there. So they used to be these popular ideas, right? Though they are not false, because it used to be practiced. There were, these are motives for ordinary people, to move them, to guide them, to inspire them to do good, and at least that's how they, through these intermediary values and then works, they are driven towards more higher and higher ideals. This was the scheme of the earlier society and then the rishis. So at least by that they were doing some charitable works to the society. So Ishta, Purta, so many terms come in the Karma Kanda literature. So, and even such ideas, such works also adds bondage rather than making one free or freer, taking us towards freedom. So even such ideas forge us more chains rather than making us free. So that is the idea. Continuing. So the only way is to give up all the fruits of work, to be unattached to them. Know that this world is not we, nor are we this world. That we are really not the body, that we really do not work. We are the self, eternally at rest and at peace. Why should we be bound by anything? So suddenly Swamiji is bringing in the Vedantic main idea. So now raising the ideal even further. Human being doesn't work at all. So why do you have even these ideas of motive, these, that, so many things? See, Swamiji using higher and higher truths, more fundamental truths, and then thrashing the lower ideas, right? So here person doesn't even work. It is work, the Prakriti which works, not the person. Person, the Atman, right? So Swamiji is using even this, and then even removing the other idea that work without motive also. Now that also is gone. Person even don't, Swami says, person doesn't even work. It is the work is all carried on by the gunas. So in the Gita we see Prakrute Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvashaha Ahankara Vimudatma Kartahamiti Manyate. The gunas of the Prakriti do all the action. It is only the deluded person who thinks he does the work. So from the highest standpoint, that is the truth. By the force of the samskaras, by the force of the prarabdha, Prakriti or the divine dispensation causes the works to happen, right? But because we do not see this inner principle, the inner truth, we do not recognize this, so we think we are working. At least we feel we are working, generally speaking. This is the thing, right? Now, so Swamiji says that also is false. So even the higher truth, the highest truth is this, that the human being who is doing the karta and bhokta, the who thinks who is doing and who is enjoying, is neither doer nor enjoyer. So took a even further fundamental teaching of the Vedanta and then thrashed this also. Now that also is gone. Now see, this is how a Karma-Yogi proceeding on the path. This is how to understand the scheme of things so that we know how to, carry on life, right? It is very good to say that we should be perfectly non-attached, but what is the way to do it? Every good work we do without any ulterior motive, worldly motive, instead of forging a new chain, will break one of the links in the existing chains. Every good thought that we send to the world without thinking of any return will be stored up there and break one link in the chain and make us purer and purer until we become the purest of mortals. So, this is a nice tip here. Every thought, kaya vacha manasa, every thought, every word we speak, every action we do, which is good, which is tending towards higher thing or based on the higher truth or which is not selfish, or let us say, of course, for a ordinary person, any work or thought of which is a duty or as per the rule, as per what is told, if somebody is accomplishing that, that itself is good. But so that is not sufficient. Going higher and higher, it should be more good, more unselfish, more. So when any thought or any action based on these will break one link in the chain of bondage and make us purer or make us closer towards the freedom. This is the thing. So that is why if we see in the whole culture these ideas, for example, when we take up any religious this thing or even in the ashrama, it is taught and when we begin anything, so there will be prayers for not just the work at hand, just general prayer of peace chants, etc. And many times when we pujas and all these religious ceremonies are taken up, or even during the morning ablution, the morning rituals, and in the traditional families, one are supposed to chant these sarve santu sukhinaha, etc., etc. The universal prayer, the prayers, not just for one's own self, for all beings, right? So all these things are inculcated in the culture, in the tradition, so as to bring in these positive things and then bringing these ideas of universal goodness, universal happiness, right? Yet all this may seem to be rather quixotic and too philosophical, more theoretical than practical. I have read many arguments against the Bhagavad Gita, and many have said that without motives you cannot work. They have never seen unselfish work except under the influence of fanaticism, and therefore they speak in that way. So here Swamiji is responding to some of the objections of the earlier time when scholars used to say, write, etc., that these teachings of unselfish work, work without motive, work and do not seek for fruits, etc., these are all not practical. Some very theoretical, good to have such ideas, but these are not practical. There used to be some ramblings like that. So Swamiji is responding to those things. And Swamiji used this word here, quixotic, meaning very idealistic but and not practical. So people used to raise objections to some of these teachings. So Swamiji is responding. Swamiji says, they have never seen unselfish work except under the influence of fanaticism. So that is why they speak like that. Swamiji says like. So now Swamiji takes up the ideal, one of the ideal example of karma yogins, that is the example of Buddha, and then goes on and places his case as an ideal, one of the perfect karma yogi, one of the ideal karma yogi who has carried out in his life the highest teachings of karma yoga and so perfectly, right? Let me tell you in conclusion a few words about one man who actually carried this teaching of karma yoga into practice. That man is Buddha. He is the one man who ever carried this into perfect practice. So Swamiji mentioned here Buddha's case. In the Gita itself, in the 3rd chapter, the Karma Yoga, Gita mentions Janakadayaha. Janaka and others attained to freedom through work. There is a statement. In the Shankara Bhashya, Shankaracharya expands it. Others, who are the others? So Shankaracharya adds one more name, that is Ashwapati. These Ashwapati, Janaka, these rishis are we come across in the Upanishads also. So there are others also. But Swamiji has taken a classical example here, which very popular and known to people. That is the case of Buddha Deva. And of course there are innumerable cases which the world may not be knowing or known only in the circles. But here Swamiji has taken a bright example and one who is known easily to everyone, right? All the prophets of the world except Buddha had external motives to move them to unselfish action. The prophets of the world, with this single exception, may be divided into two sets. One set holding that they are incarnations of God, come down on earth, and the other holding that they are only messengers from God. And both draw their impetus for work from outside, expect reward from outside, however highly spiritual they may be, however highly spiritual may be the language they use. So, 2 points here. All the prophets of the world, prophets as well as incarnations of God, had external motives to move them to work because they are divine messengers, divine avatars. So, whatever the action, whatever the work they have done is done for the good of the world. So it's unselfish. It's nothing for themselves, right? So they had external motives. One set, so there are two sets. One set claiming they are incarnations of God, and the other set claiming they are messengers of God. So both draw their impetus for work from outside. So how is this? So those who claimed incarnations of God, they being God, it is the duty of the Lord to establish Dharma. It is, who else but Lord will make sure that the society, and whenever Dharma declines that he made a statement, so Gita, etc. Who else but Lord can actually, will ensure the world remains in order, is it not? So it is his duty, it is his empire, is it not? So it is his duty, it becomes his duty. If it is let's say the master of the house, it is the master's duty to take care, to see that the rule prevails and then there is harmony in the house. Similarly, it is the king's duty ultimately to see that there is rule and harmony and then so the order in the kingdom, is it not? Similarly, the Lord for the whole universe. So there is a reason for him. So that is then. If he is incarnation, so because he has come down for that purpose, so he has to do that thing, right? So that is, there is some kind of divine. So external mane, being there is a divine source. The impetus or the reason or the motive is coming from the divine source. Similarly, the other set, the messengers of God. So they claim the God has commissioned them to establish so and so rule, so and so dharma, and then set in motion so and so things. Many of the things, many of the messengers, those who claimed messengers of God, say for example, Moses, he received the commandments of God to so go, and then Lord told him go establish the thing, the rules, and then he gave them rules also, the 10 commandments. Similarly, many we have got such things, and many, not just come down even further down, the Karana Janmas, the saints who received command from God to preach, to establish, to one line of work it could be, right? So we see them. So they have mentioned, they talked about in their lives, right, this thing. So there is a external motive, external command for them to work, right? So Swamiji says, even these incarnations and messengers, they have a external reason, or the motive, or a impetus for their work. But in Buddha's case, that also is missing. He did not even acknowledge God. He did not bother about that, right? So we see further. For some of these reasons, actually, Swamiji is very fascinated about Buddha's example as a great Karma-Yogi. So, continuing, but Buddha is the only prophet who said, I do not care to know your various theories about God. What is the use of discussing all the subtle doctrines about the soul? Do good and be good. That is, and this will take you to freedom and to whatever truth there is. So, you see, he did not even acknowledge the God, or did not bother about it. Of course, there are reasons why, so Buddha said like this, or took this line, or so the society of the time was like that. So now he said, do good and be good, and that will take you to freedom, and whatever truth there is, whatever the good one can achieve. He was in the conduct of his life absolutely without personal motives. And what man worked more than he? Show me in history one character who has soared so high above all. The whole human race has produced but one such character, such high philosophy, such wide sympathy. So, elsewhere Swamiji has mentioned, Buddha sought for truth, not for himself. He saw the people were in misery, world was in misery, utter misery. The priests were busy with the rituals and forging more chains on the common man. But common man, and some of the places the kings are busy just with their petty motives, quarreling, fighting, war, all these things. So Buddha saw the chaos in the society, and common man is in utter misery. And so he went out to seek for the truth and the solution to this fundamental misery, the issue in the society. But it was for the common man, but not for himself. Swamiji said he sought truth not for himself, but because people were in misery. So you see, even his whole life is just because for the others. Even the so-called the highest this thing which people seek, the moksha, etc., because they want moksha. So which is of course a highest noble thing to do for every person or any person. But here in the case of thing, he did not seek that for his own case. He sought truth. He went out in search and made all those great tyaga, the renunciation, and because people were in misery, and so he went out to seek truth, to find a solution to the problem of misery. So he had no personal motive. He had no even this extra, the divine motive also to move him to work, right? And show me. So here Swamiji made one more thing, that show me the one man who worked more than he. So here something can be said. So Buddha, he left home around 20s, sometime in 20s. The records are varying, there is no clear this thing, but we know it's around the 20s he left home, and there is consensus up to almost the age of 80 he was alive, and then continuously, incessantly he was working, establishing dharma, teaching, preaching, guiding people, even in deathbed, we know. So when he could hardly get up, so he was allowing people to come near and then teaching, which we saw in case of Sri Ramakrishna as well, right? So up to the ripe age of 80 he was working. So this he probably Swamiji is comparing, because some of the acharyas, etc., they passed away quite early. Swamiji himself passed away quite early. So Shankaracharya left, passed away around the age of 32 or something. So continuing, so here, show me in history one character who has soared so high above all. So there are many reasons why actually Swamiji has, goes on in this trend. Elsewhere, Swamiji says Buddha is the first reformer. So here Swamiji makes that statement. He is the first reformer, the social reformer. He was the first to establish or give to society a perfect system of ethics and morals. So there are many great contributions from Buddha Deva. So with all these and his character, his life itself, without any motives, he could do so much. He could soar so high and he could accomplish so much. So all these things are there. That's why Swamiji is so inspired about the character of Buddha. Show me in history one character who has soared so high above all. The whole human race has produced but one such character, such high philosophy and such wide sympathy. So here another characteristic of Buddha Deva is such high philosophy, that brain power, at the same time such wide sympathy. So we know in the life of Buddha, at some place, that was the age where this sacrifice, animal sacrifice was rampant, was too much in vogue. So at one place, Buddha offered his own body, himself, to save one lamb, one small lamb from being sacrificed. And of course, they dared not to sacrifice himself, Buddha Deva then. So this was not simply a flowery thing. So he sincerely offered himself. So we see so much sympathy even for a small animal. That's what Swamiji says, that wide sympathy for everyone in misery. This great philosopher, preaching the highest philosophy, yet had the deepest sympathy for the lowest of animals. This was I said, and never put forth any claims for himself. So, never put forth any claims for himself. This means, Swamiji elsewhere explains, see, in even his own lifetime, his own disciples and other admirers, they were saying he is some great divine person. Buddha said, no, nothing. I am just as ordinary as any of you. I have just practiced and attained to this Buddhahood. Anyone can attain, achieve, and then practice and achieve this Buddhahood. So he did not consider himself any special person, any divine. So any of such things he did not believe or ascribe to himself, nor allowed any of these disciples to put such adjectives on him and then set him apart. No, he did not even claim. Swamiji said one more thing, that just for one moment, if he had allowed, they would have worshipped him as an incarnation, as God himself on earth, but he did not allow. Swamiji said one moment's weakness he could have allowed that in his lifetime, but he did not know. So sane, so down to earth he was. So these characteristics of the person are there. That's why Swamiji is so fascinated about the Buddha's character. He did not put forth any claims for himself. This is the thing. Never allowed any worship, the hero worship, which usually happens. So we see in the cult these things. So even there was one magazine somewhere in, of course, there. One Hindu preacher, whole magazine is full of preaching Gurudeva, and the preaching the head of their sect. You preach some teachings, this, that, etc. Maybe something may be there. Whole magazine is full of that thing. Hero worship. Swamiji uses this term, hero worship. Swamiji avoided with great effort when in America, people just worshipping and then Swamiji as hero and then, but not following his teachings. No, Swamiji wanted his teachings to be taken up, not to worship himself as some great hero, this thing. Similar is the case in the Buddha's this thing also. Don't look upon me as some great person or some this, that, etc. No, I have practiced diligently and I have attained Buddhahood. You also can practice and then reach it. So high, so practical, so down to earth he was. Though of course easily said than done, but it is true. Many have practiced and then achieved and then raised themselves. If not in one life, it may take. That depends on at what stage somebody is, right? So he did not lay any claims for himself. This is the meaning of that. He is the ideal Karma-Yogi, acting entirely without motive, and the history of humanity shows him to have been the greatest man ever born, beyond compare the greatest combination of heart and brain that ever existed, the greatest soul power that has ever been manifested. So, these are Swamiji's these things. Something why Swamiji says greatest soul power, all these things. So one thing we see, so when he sat down to achieve this thing, so great was his willpower, we see, is it not? Let me perish in this seat, I will not get up, that great. Oh, he took when at final stage when he sat for his final illumination with this, so popular it has become that, he took until he achieves that illumination which is difficult to achieve in ages. He will not get up from the seat. He took that and then sat. And of course, that night itself, Buddha achieves the final illumination, enlightenment. So, that great willpower and all these things are there. So, that is why Swamiji uses probably the greatest soul power that has ever been manifested. All these things Swamiji uses. Of course, such sane and great philosophy he gave, and that's why Swamiji uses the great brain power and such wide sympathy he had. See, all his life, why he did all that tapasya and then seeking and then preaching for nearly 60 years, 55 to 60 years, he was just roaming around and going to place and then thousands, hundreds of people he is preaching everywhere and then making, within his lifetime, this number of disciples had probably crossed many thousands. And so many people he had to preach, not once, he will go again and again, going from kingdom to kingdom, place to place, all the time. Now, so probably because of all these things, Swamiji uses these adjectives, and then these, the greatest soul power that has ever been manifested. Is the first great reformer the world has seen. This I mentioned, the first great reformer, because he brought in, Buddhadeva brought in, gave new morals about even the ordinary, the practice, ordinary life itself. And then even in the case of rituals, etc., he brought in a good number of simplification and then reforms. Not as a puja itself, but general way. So, the first great reformer, see, why should he require some external reason to do good? It is good to do good. And so, is it not? It's such a sane, ethical ethical point, is it not? So, there are many things like this in the teachings of Buddha. So, that's why Swamiji says it's the first great reform the world has seen. He was the first who dared to say, believe not because some old manuscripts are produced. Believe not because it is your national belief, because you have been made to believe it from your childhood, but reason it all out, and after you have analyzed it, then if you find that it will do good to one and all, believe it and live up to it, and help others to live up to it. You see, yes, so it looks so straightforward, is it not? Why should you? So here, one rational this thing also. Earlier, the so-called in the free caste, it becomes, slowly the degeneration comes. So many things, so many superstitious ideas go on accumulating, etc. Right? Narrower and narrower ideas go on accumulating. over a time until somebody comes in our own time. Swamiji, Thakur Swamiji, how much they have brought in, how much reform, how much Yuga Dharma they have brought in to simplify and give a new direction to the society, not just India. So it's the whole world. Half of the Swamiji's work was elsewhere, outside India. Is it not? Much of complete work is recorded outside India, not in India. So this is there. See, so you see, earlier so many teachings were there which are more on this ritualistic based, etc. So this Buddha Deva wanted to cut off and then make the people's life simpler and simpler, so that simpler in approach to truth and in practice of it. So that's why I said, Swamiji said, the Buddha said, believe not because some manuscript somebody is produced, somebody is saying, analyze it and see if it is good. If it is good and if you think it is good for others, then leave up and give it to others also, right? So Buddha Deva emphasizing some rationality here rather than mere blind belief in theories, tradition or superstitions also. Of course it happens, is it not? Over a period, so many dogmas, superstitions accumulate, and then which would have the original positive side would have already gone. Only it just remains as a mere custom, right? We are doing more bad, ill or the bad than good to the society or the practitioners. So this Swamiji gave one point to see what the great reforms he brought in the society. So just Swamiji is saying all these things in just to mention, though all this is true, some of the teachings Swamiji himself says he doesn't agree with that. Swamiji says, just I am mentioning it here on record, that the teachings of Vedanta are more perfect and then more rational. Swamiji says compared to Buddha's teaching, just because Swamiji is so much talking about Buddha Deva, but he is talking about, there is more about Buddha Deva Swamiji has taken, but just mentioning there. So continuing, is the first great reformer the world has seen. He works, so that much about the Buddha's this thing. In conclusion, Swamiji gives a few remarks here. He works best who works without any motive, neither for money, nor for fame, nor for anything else. And when a man can do that, he will be a Buddha, and out of him will come the power to work in such a manner as will transform the world. This man represents the ideal, highest ideal of Karma-Yoga. So, when a man can work without any motive, so this is the highest ideal. There could be motives for, let's say, usual motives for earning or money or wealth, or the next higher things, those subtle things, they are name, fame, etc., or let's say that loka, this loka, etc. So the higher ones, subtle ones, though not materialistic, and none of them, when a person can work without any of these motives, definitely that will not be either it will be for just a bare sustenance of oneself or for the good of the world, is it not? When somebody is working at that level, at that with that motive or with that approach. So when somebody can do that, he will be a Buddha. He will be such, established in such high moral ethics and morals and ethics. Out of him will come a power to work in such a manner as will transform the world. So their works will have more and a lasting impact. That's what so Swamiji intends to say here. Will come such a power as will transform the world. So because their works, their words even will be lasting, and it will have lasting impact and on larger section of the society, depending on how much unselfish, how much powerful they are, right? So this man represents the highest ideal of Karma Yoga. Okay? So here ends the Karma Yoga of Swamiji, the last chapter this is. So that concludes this series of classes in the Karma Yoga thing. Okay? Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat.